Hi and welcome back. This is Angie, Angela Parrott Disney, continuing the audio reading of Daniel Ryder's book, Cover Up of the Century. I'll go straight into chapter 16. The rest of these are on a playlist, which you may have found by now. World Conspiracy. John Smith, PhD, pseudonym for safety reasons, has worked extensively with ritual abuse cases, including numerous consultations across the country. He's an expert at reversing cult programming. And he said many of the cases he's worked on have included any number of the same types of advanced programming discussed in the last chapter. What's more, Smith, as with others, is also seeing the emergence of a scary cult global agenda. Indeed. While emphasizing this only theory, based on his work with some cult survivors and supplemented with information from the nationwide consults, the following is what Smith said he has been able to piece together. He too said some of these cult survivors have been turned into conditioned operatives to be used as, in essence, dissociative pawns for drug dealing, prostitution, weapon sales, assassinations, and I add again, espionage. He used the metaphor of an army of worker ants who are being controlled by, quote, megalomaniacs who ultimately want total power and world domination. Many cult survivors and others in diverse research areas around the world have independently stated that the international leadership of the cult is called the Illuminati. Author Gary Carr, a once high-ranking government liaison, also believes in the world takeover scenario being orchestrated by the Illuminati. In his book, En route to global occupation, Carr describes the Illuminati as a, quote, secret society founded as a Freemason-inspired group in 1776. Carr goes on to write, John Robinson, an 18th century historian and a prominent Mason, was entrusted with some of the original documents and correspondence of the Illuminati. In his book, Proofs of a Conspiracy, written in 1798, he produced major segments of the Illuminati's original writings. Robinson stated, quote, the express aim of the order, brackets Illuminati, was to abolish Christianity and overturn all civil government. Brackets Carr then goes on to write about how he believes the plan for a, quote, new world order has evolved out of the Illuminati plan. It is a plan, it seems, that has been experimented with before. William Schnöblin, author of Masonry Beyond the Light, said the Illuminati was the brainchild of Adam Weishaupt, who was intent on creating a reign of genius philosopher kings. Brackets, when Weishaupt started the group in 1776, he was a professor at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria and originally called it the Ancient and Illuminated Seers of Bavaria, AISB. As Carr notes, Schnöblin said Weishaupt, in effect, created a secret order within Masons. Brackets, that is a secret order within a secret order. Weishaupt also, said Schnöblin, believed in fostering controlled chaos necessary for revolution to bring about the installation of these philosopher kings. I think we're living in that in 2020 with this global shutdown due to an alleged virus. This is, all this was foretold but regarded as conspiracy. Weishaupt also, said Schnöblin, believed it, yes, in fostering controlled chaos necessary for revolutions to bring about the installation of these philosopher kings. Brackets, the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror were typical of Weishaupt's plans. Schnöblin writes, had God not intervened, all of Europe might well have gone the way of France and the then coming, quote, terror. Weishaupt's infiltration of Masonry might have been complete had not an AISB courier been blown off his horse and killed by a lightning stroke in 1785. The courier was carrying papers written in the cipher of Illuminism and dealt with the plans of AISB to subvert the Masons and governments of Europe. After this, the Illuminati was broken up by police and went underground, where Schnoebelen and many others believe the infiltration of Masonry and governments continued on a highly covert level, always with the same goal: world takeover. Schnoebelen said Weishaupt believed societies cycled through 5 phases, and if the phases were manipulated properly, it could become the platform to springboard the philosopher kings into control. 1. Chaos, the starting point for all societies. Well, we've got that with this alleged corona outbreak. 2. Discord. There is discord because a ruling class has emerged and the, quote, average people resent the imposition of authority. Indeed. 3. Confusion. An attempt to restore balance between the two groups fails. 4. Bureaucracy. In this phase, everything must be obsessively tracked so it doesn't get out of control as in phase 3. In this, the ruling bureaucracy primarily becomes God. People can't internally deal with the spiritual void this creates and escape into fantasy, drugs, and madness. During this phase, the destruction of the middle class also occurs, creating an economic crisis. Wow. And Craig McGowan puts emphasis added. Yes, so relevant in this 2020. And 5, aftermath. This, Weishaupt taught, was the implosion of society, a reversion to chaos where the bureaucracy crashes under its own red tape and things whirl out of control. With the masses groping for order, the climate becomes perfect to usher in the philosopher kings. People trying to assume those roles like Bill Gates, Fauci. Schnoebelen said he believes our society is well into stage 4 at this point. Again, this book was written about 20 years ago. Brackets, it's escaped into huge amounts of addictive and compulsive behavior, into the fantasy of an all-consuming, quote, entertainment industry. Craig McGowan added the emphasis there, and so on. And Schnoebelen said he believes, as Weishaupt tried, the modern-day Illuminati is positioning itself for takeover as society implodes and reverts to chaos. Schnoebelen, who is a former 32nd degree Mason, said he believes the majority of Masons don't even know about the inner circle of Illuminati or their plans. However, in joining the Masons, Schnoebelen said he believes these low-level members spiritually open themselves to the demonic roaming the inner bowels of the organization. And that can be said for so many organizations that are corrupt at the top. And with those doors open, the demonic then turns these members into naive pawns who are preparing the ground, so to speak, on the surface of society for these, quote, kings and their antichrist philosophies. That is glorifying materialism, establishing counterfeit spiritual systems, absolutely, New Age and Ascension, all that stuff, creating dysfunctional family systems that tear at the very fabric of society. Yeah, absolutely. Coming chaos. Schnoebelen also said the destabilization in stage 4 of our current society is being ratcheted up markedly at this point. heading towards implosion, which is what we've got going on now in 2020. And behind the scenes, legions of children are being groomed to become compliant, multiple personality tools for the Illuminati elite as they shape the New World Order. It will be a, quote, perfect race of people. That is, said Schnoebelen, a perfectly demonically possessed race of people. And we remember Jeffrey Epstein talking about he was going to sire a perfect race. Wow. Quote, it's as if Satan is being a diamond cutter, said Schnoebelen. Schnoebelen also said he believes the societal implosion will ultimately come about through things like financial and or environmental crisis or a manufactured plague. Bryce Taylor, pseudonym, author of Starshine, reports she's had first-hand experience with these contemporary, quote, philosopher kings. What's more, not only are they riding societal tide, according to Taylor, they are orchestrating most every aspect of it in the most sophisticated and clandestine ways. Taylor, like Kathleen H., reports being a top-level mind control operative. She also said she was exposed to some of the highest levels of the takeover plot. However, she said she broke away and through extensive recovery work and intensive deprogramming has been able to piece together some of the key components of the plot. She wrote Thanks for the Memories as well about Bob Hope and other handlers. Her name is Susan Ford. She's come out with that now. Fantastic book. As a youth, Taylor was traumatized in satanic rituals, which turned her into a, quote, complex multiple. During this time, she was also used in child pornography. Just prior to her teens, her father hooked up with a grandfather who was the mayor of a Midwestern town. Over time, she was prostituted into higher and higher political circles, including liaisons with United States presidents. Brackets, her altered personalities were highly trained and included photographic memory. Yeah. She said she was subsequently enlisted by a, quote, elite circle. She said this small group of men were the ones at the heart of the takeover move. She said these people would orchestrate wars, secretly control world banking, manipulate the media, and were systematically enlisting one country leader after another. And for those that wouldn't go along with the plan for a new world order, the inner circle would go to great measures, said Taylor, to manipulate or destroy them. Through varying channels, for instance, Taylor said she would be prostituted to some of these leaders. She said she was programmed to learn about the leaders' secret sexual fantasies, drug habits, and so on. Then scenarios would be set up to bring the leader down, all for blackmail purposes. Taylor said the inner circle was very calculating, very thorough. Also, behind the scenes, Taylor said there is ongoing work to build an, quote, Aryan race of mind control slaves that even includes genetic engineering to create what they believe are physically and intellectually superior people, just like the Nazis were trying 50 years ago. Taylor explained a key component in the takeover will be the orchestration of a financial collapse of the United States, which is slated for the very near future. Craig McGowan added emphasis there. She said it will make the depression of the early part of the century seem minor. The plan, Taylor said, is for a, quote, world government to then come to the rescue. Brackets, Taylor said many others tracking the evolving New World Order at this point recommend getting out of debt and having property that will facilitate self-sufficiency and the possibility of community. In concert, global environmental disasters are to increase dramatically, wiping out masses of people. Some of the disasters, such as earthquakes, fires, floods, said Taylor, will also be orchestrated by this inner circle who apparently have the technology to effect natural disasters on a wide scale, to help wipe out people they believe are inferior and will be a drain on the new world. And again, the emphasis was added by Craig. Brackets, there are reports, for instance, of current government experimentation with electromagnetic beams to knock out communication systems and change weather patterns over enemy countries. Preliminary reports on prototype testing indicate these beams could alter weather with the injection of huge amounts of heat beams into the ionosphere, creating in effect the equivalent of mini supercharged El Niños. In essence, droughts would be orchestrated in some areas and torrential rain in others, and so on. Taylor said many of the, quote, worker bees, so to speak, that is the people doing the research at government installations, in research laboratories at universities and so on, aren't aware of the big picture as far as how some of their work is really intended to be used, including in some cases on them. Brackets, just as many of the average Masons don't understand the bigger picture. The takeover crescendo may include another element that may add even more to the, quote, chaos. Smith said he knows of several dozen cult survivors who report being programmed to assassinate politicians, newspaper publishers, priests around the same time. Quote, I'll get a phone call. There will be a tone and codes will be given, indicating my assassination assignment. I'm then to flee to a meeting place in Canada. Smith used this as a typical example of some of the reports he's getting from operatives. In the resulting chaos, it's highly feasible the masses will be groping for leadership, any form of leadership. More validation. Dr. Julianne Denson Gerber also said she believes there is credence to what Smith describes. Denson Gerber, mentioned earlier, is a psychiatrist, lawyer, and founder of PACT, Protect America's Children Today. Based on discussions with colleagues and cult survivors, Denson Gerber said she's heard a significant number of stories of ritual abuse survivors that have also been programmed to act out in Manchurian Candidate type assassin style to create this total planetary chaos prior to the installation of the Antichrist, she said. A Texas cult deprogrammer said he's starting to find at the deeper levels of cult assassin programming that there are in fact internal computers programmed into the psyche with series of names, dates, and so on relating to the assassination targets. In regard to this sophisticated deeper level program, he said, it helps to think of the complex programming layers like a very sophisticated Super Mario Nintendo game. There are many levels, secrets at each level, and hazards to getting to them. Note, sometimes for cult survivors, depending on the sophistication of the cult, these deeper levels of programming can be highly complex. For instance, a programmer instructs a victim alter he was turning into an assassin, that he was implanting a computer system in the victim's psyche, and then would, quote, load a series of names, dates, and locations relating to each assassination target. And just like we need to know, say, our user password, the software program name, like WordPerfect, and the name of the document to get to the data in a computer, so it is with some of these cult-programmed assassins. And only the programmer, select cult people, and the assassin personality know the codes. What's more, the Texas deprogrammer who travels the country consulting on ritual abuse cases said a number of survivors have gotten to extremely deep levels where not only are these internal computers being revealed, but information is surfacing that there are, quote, external computers as well. The deprogrammer said a number of survivors around the country that are getting to the deepest level of some ultra-sophisticated programming are also reporting there are main computers in Washington, D.C. and Colorado that have lists of all of the cult operatives that have been programmed, what their access codes are, the types of jobs they've been programmed to do. The information might also be available to cult zone leaders, etc., over a computer, quote, internet system of sorts. He also said, according to survivor report data he's gathered, cult people have already been installed in key leadership positions around the globe. Yeah, like Justin Trudeau. I would even certainly over Radka, who spent 3 years under Obama for sure. You know, that's just me. And others are being groomed to take over even more positions like Macron, this, you know, Merkel. In addition, he too has heard that other key leaders will be assassinated in the future. I wonder what's happened to King Jong-un, who allegedly had a catastrophic heart attack or some medical catastrophe. Dr. Jensen Gerber, Gary Carr, and many others believe we've graphically moved into the, quote, end times, talked about in the Bible's book of Revelation, and that this scenario is matching up with some of what is predicted there, even more so now. Takeover strategies. Doug Riggs was also at the seminar in Richmond. Riggs is the pastor of Morning Star Testimony Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Since 1990, he reports having counseled with an astonishing 14 people in his congregation who have been conditioned with his ultra high-level programming. It's his belief these people were programmed and sent to this geographic area, as other clusters of operatives may have been sent to other areas. The participation in the church on one level was merely part of the front. From the information he's gleaned so far, Riggs too said he believes the world takeover scenario is not only in progress, but in its last phases. Quote, the mystery isn't really the takeover, said Riggs. That's written about in Revelation. The real mystery has been how it's being done. Yeah, even a lot of end-time prophets didn't foresee specifically an alleged plague being the catalyst for economic chaos and world domination, with billions of people complying with house arrest. Riggs also believes the Illuminati has ruling, quote, masters who are orchestrating the plan. And Riggs said he believes these ruling masters are actually a rung below a globally renowned family who controls a large portion of international banking. Riggs said this control has apparently been one of the key elements in the evolving takeover. Many governments are in debt to international bankers, and through this debt, banking institutions theoretically would control and dictate certain aspects of politics, this covertly setting the stage for what is to come. For example, some of the Illuminati may have already been placed in key government positions, and others are waiting in the wings, said Riggs. Riggs said he was able to access the information about this renowned family, the Illuminati, and so on, through alter personalities that have been programmed into some of the people he's been working with. He too said he has learned, according to survivor reports, there is a network of programmed assassins and other, quote, agents throughout the world that are part of the takeover plot. He said he has learned from survivors some highly skilled neurologists and other programmers have reportedly been used to build these complex alter personality systems into those operatives. Riggs also believes that some of this is being carried out by, quote, demonic intelligence, yeah, absolutely, which is highly evolved and could account for the high degree of sophistication, and one of the reasons it has all been kept as covert as it has for so long. However, Riggs believes God is now allowing it to be exposed. Amen. He gave a brief example of how he believes these demonic dynamics play an extremely significant part. That is, as mentioned before, as the person is being tortured, say through electroshock, they dissociate. And in this state, alter personalities are programmed in by the perpetrators. What's more, the perpetrators will sometimes also perform rituals to channel demons into the victim. Absolutely. Demonic attachments. Every dissociation is deemed successful by them if they manage to attach a demon. These demons will attach to the cult-created alter personalities. The demonic influence, Riggs said he believes, works to sabotage the recovery process and keep the deep levels of programming secret. Demons are also reportedly capable of highly advanced telepathy, astral projection, being able to travel through space at a highly accelerated pace, and so on. The demonic influence, said Riggs, is like adding another exponent to the sophistication of the programming. Riggs said he believes Satan is setting up the core of his takeover, attempted takeover, the core of his earthly kingdom through this process. That is, through a legion of people who at the core of their being are demonically possessed and will automatically respond to any, quote, dark side based command or cue. Intervention. Given all this sophistication, Riggs nevertheless said he has been extremely effective, survivor by survivor, in exposing the levels of programming and reversing it. Brackets, he's quick to point out he has been effective under God's guidance. He said as more and more helping professionals become familiar with the protocol of affecting all this, it will have a major impact on the takeover plot. That is, according to Riggs' spiritual beliefs, if you can get the demons out, yes, and have the, quote, dark side alters convert, you cut off communication from the cult. Hallelujah. Both on spiritual and or paranormal planes. That is, the cult will, for instance, sometimes use mental telepathy to relay a message, cue a program, etc. Brackets, things like paranormal abilities such as telepathy have also been demonstrated in studies at Drake University. Note, in addition, often much solid psychological deprogramming and other recovery work must be done to shut down the old system and help the survivor heal completely. I've had high-level Illuminati members try really very hard to trigger me into duty, and it doesn't work because I have had extensive deliverance ministry. I've researched, I'm born again, I'm connected back to my Creator through Jesus, powered by the Holy Spirit. And I've had people, like billionaire people, speak to me on the phone or on chat or whatever and give me trigger words, and it's like gone, not accessible, access denied, in a good way. Okay. Riggs reiterated, it's important to understand how the, quote, dark side kingdom is being set up, person by person. It's also imperative their authority structure is understood, how they network, and so on. And as this continues to be revealed and reversed, person by person, a significant dent will be made, weakening and limiting the impact and overall scope of the plan. Quote, undoing the programming is a big threat to them, the Illuminati, said Riggs. Riggs said he has watched the intensification of evil grow stronger and stronger as we've approached the end of this century. That was before 2000. And he said he couldn't think of anything more heinous or evil than all but taking away the very core of an individual, reprogramming it and infesting it with demons. But despite all that, Riggs said he has watched amazed as God has worked to start to turn the situation around again, person by person. Vortex of evil. At Richmond, I also met a psychotherapist from Dallas, Texas, who heard there would be a, quote, dark side intended convergence on Atlanta in 1996. Linda Martin, PhD, has a private practice and has facilitated a number of MP ritual abuse groups at 3 Dallas area hospitals. She had recently been called in to consult on a ritual abuse case. The survivor reported she had also been a cult trainer and programmer. At one point, the woman told Martin some of the top echelon of the cult would be coming from all over the world to meet at the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996. These would be the elite, quote, most given over to demonic spirits, she said. The former cult member went on to tell Martin these people would begin to pray intensely the first day of the Olympics to create a, quote, vortex to allow the evil spirits to flood into the earth. Think Olympics 2012, London, 2012 Olympics. Think Super Bowl half times. The intention, said the woman, is to get as many dark side spiritual forces as possible to help in the final phase of the takeover plan. Martin said she was initially skeptical about the information. However, several weeks after hearing about it, she received a copy of the Christian-oriented Morning Star Prophetic Bulletin out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, I'm just suspicious about Morning Star because Lucifer likes to be called that. Anyway, I'll continue. She said one of the stories included a prophecy there was a strong battle raging in the spiritual dimensions, a battle that was being accelerated. What's more, the prophecy included there would be a convergence of evil in Atlanta in 1996, and it was important for Christians to also go to Atlanta to pray at that time as well. The synchronicity was spooky, said Martin, referring to having just heard a similar thing from the cult survivor. Martin said she now believes something is going to happen in Atlanta, and God is starting to alert people, even if not everyone even knows exactly what they are getting ready for yet. Note, this vortex or portal phenomenon isn't without satanic precedent. In the book Objective Evil, Satanic Cults in the US Intelligence, which is the book, by the way, which is the other one, if anybody has a copy of that, please get it to me, because I will do an audio reading of that as well. If anybody can forward a PDF or a manuscript, I'll read the title again. Objective Evil, Satanic Cults in the US Intelligence. Thanks. It's reported Westphalia, Germany, wow, that rings a bell, was the site of prayer and black magic rituals by the Nazi SS. They too were trying to channel as many demons as possible through a portal there to help them with their takeover plans. I was born in Germany in a military Freemasonic purpose-built hospital, which I believe was, hosted Josef Mengele post-World War II to supervise some of the experiments going on there. I refer you to some of my videos referring to RAF Vegberg. Commandant Heinrich Himmler believed Westphalia to be the geographical center of the world and the point where the greatest evil was concentrated. End times. The end times topic is getting a substantial amount of notice of late. Bible scholars, researchers, authors are pointing to current global occurrences as indications we have indeed moved well into the end times. And a graphic example researchers point to is a Bible passage from the book of Revelation. Brackets again, the book of Revelation contains prophecy about the end times. Revelations chapter 8, verses 10 to 11. A huge star, burning like a torch, crashed down from the sky. The star's name was Wormwood. The Ukrainian translation for wormwood is Chernobyl. Wow. Beside the book of Revelation, there are numerous other references throughout the Bible to the end times. On the Mount of Olives, Jesus' disciples asked him about the signs that would precede his second coming and the, quote, end of the age. Matthew 24, verses 4 to 7 and 12. Jesus answered, "Watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." Besides earthquakes and famines, in other places, the Bible predicts the end times will also see dramatic fires. We think of Australia, particularly recently, California, floods, I think of places like Bangladesh, and plagues, COVID-19, illusion. There has been dramatic flooding in Europe and the United States the last several years, massive earthquakes in Mexico, Italy, Russia, Japan, fires raging in America's West, in Australia, widespread famine in Africa, India, and diseases like cancer and AIDS are sweeping through the world population. And, for instance, in 1993, there were 73, quote, hotspots around the globe, places where there was war or the imminent threat of war. In another section in the Bible's book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 32 and 33, Jesus said, "Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that Jesus' second coming, is near, right at the door." Many believe the second coming is, quote, right at the door. Jesus' second coming marks the beginning of 1,000 years of peace, according to the book of Revelation. Bookstores are filling with end-time literature. Front pages of newspapers around the world often read like pages from the book of Revelation. Numerous circles are urgently postulating about the particulars of how the end-time scenario plays itself out. Some, for instance, see the approaching, quote, New World Order as the camouflaged end-time, one-world Antichrist system referred to in the Bible. Many also believe the, quote, mark of the beast prophecies is needed to participate in this system may be a, quote, smart card or biochip implanted in the hand of the forehead. Remember, this is being written 20 years ago. And the climax of this era might include some version of an attempt at a, quote, physical takeover. A lot of indicators emerging in the ritual abuse field seem to point towards a calculated and sophisticated orchestration of this. However, it seems many are transfixed on looking to the future in all of this, when dramatic lifestyle decisions might well be called for now. Antichrist system already here. In my own research, one of the main things I've come to is, while many have their eyes trained on the underground workings of the physical takeover, the above-ground evolution of the, quote, New World Order and so on, what many aren't seeing is Satan's one-world system, or systems, has already evolved and is marking people now. I once heard a minister in Southern California give the talk called The Last International Sign Before Armageddon. He alluded to the book of Revelation, chapter 16, verse 13. Then I saw 3 evil spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. The minister said he saw these frogs, or evil spirits, as symbolic of the Antichrist systems that have been put into place. And the frogs coming out in the open, as related in the passage, is when people will finally see the system for what they really, the systems for what they really are. And again, you can't avoid COVID-19 and the call for tracking systems, vaccinations, ID 2020, Bill Gates' whole scenario, Elon Musk, the Internet of Things. It's just all playing out unbelievably. In the book To Priests, brackets, Our Lady's Beloved Sons, Father Don Stefano Gobbi reports the Virgin Mary, through interior locution to him, has confirmed we are into the end times. What's more, she explained the red dragon of Revelation is Marxist communism. The black beast with 7 heads, according to Revelation, is Freemasonry, Mary said. Now, you see, I'm not sure that the Mother of God, Mary, will be giving prophecies. I'm not sure whether I don't think that's biblical in the purest sense of the word. I just don't. Brackets, and there are 7 Masonic lodges around the world, she continued, conspiring to subtly and diabolically weave their satanic philosophy into all of society. Satan, through Freemasonry, is using such mediums as dysfunctional family systems, media, entertainment systems, school systems, systems based on glorifying materialism, counterfeit spiritual systems. It's also reported, Mary said, quote, behind the perverse action of Freemasonry, there are being spread everywhere black masses and the satanic cult. Father Gobbi also reports Mary again said people are already being signed with what Revelation refers to as the mark of the beast. So I'm just not comfortable with this. The Bible speaks very specifically against channeling dead people. When I think it was King Saul went to consult the prophet Samuel, who was dead, although the medium did call up the spirit of Samuel from the dead, Saul was chastised strongly and told, you are not to consult the dead. And I would assert that includes Mary. And Saul lost the battle and lost his life as a result. of consulting the dead. So that's just where I stand on that. But anyway, I'll continue with the reading of the book. According to Revelation, that mark is imprinted on the forehead and hand. According to Mary, the forehead indicates the intellect and the hand expresses human activity. Those marked on the forehead, she said, are led to accept the doctrine of denial of God, rejection of his law, atheism. Those with the mark on their hand act autonomous of God, ordering their activities in a quest for purely material or terrestrial good. Besides the seven-headed beast, there is another beast of Revelation, which has on its head, quote, 2 horns like those of a lamb. The high priest of the Old Testament wore a headpiece with 2 horns. The bishops of the Catholic Church wear the mitre with 2 horns to indicate the fullness of their priesthood, said Mary. It's reported Mary said the beast with the 2 horns like a lamb indicates Freemasonry infiltrated into the interior of the church, ecclesiastical masonry. Quote, if the task of masonry is to lead souls to perdition, bringing them to the worship of false divinities, the task of ecclesiastical masonry, on the other hand, is that of destroying Christ and his church, building a new idol, namely a false Christ and a false church. Quote, the church instituted by Christ is one and one alone. It's the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church founded on Peter. Quote, ecclesiastical masonry, it's reported Mary said, seeks to destroy this reality through false ecumenism, which leads to the acceptance of all Christian churches, asserting that each one of them has some part of the truth. It develops that plan of founding a universal ecumenical church formed by the fusion of all the Christian confessions, among which the Catholic Church. Brackets, that is, the Masons have clandestinely woven their way into the Catholic Church as well, dividing it internally between those holding on to the true faith and those that have been misled by false doctrine. Now, all these systems, whether dysfunctional family systems, media entertainment systems, materialistic systems, counterfeit spiritual systems, appear pretty easy to see at this point. That is easy to see unless one has been gradually desensitized. Noted author Malcolm Muggeridge uses an excellent metaphor for this desensitization, which, wouldn't you know, has to do with frogs. Oh, the boiling frogs. Quote, you put frogs in some water and you heat the water very slowly, so slowly that the frogs never once think of jumping out. They just quietly die once the water boils. This is what our Western society is like, very gently being boiled. Therefore, the impulse to jump out and save ourselves is inoperative, which looks like happening as people welcome quarantine and control. It would seem, given all this, we need to be praying in major ways for God to give us the grace to see the systems clearly, and then the grace to get out of them one day at a time. Amen. And the starting to, quote, jump out, for instance, would be things like if you're caught up in dysfunctional family system behavior, get into some counseling, some 12-step groups, or other forms of recovery. Right, I need to just say this, something I've discovered in my research. Dr. David Valentine was a psychiatrist who went to the Allen Memorial and brought back the 12-step programs to Europe. He was in charge of most of North Yorkshire. He was chief psychiatrist. And he brought MK Ultra and the 12-step programs to Europe. The wife of Bill W. and other prominent people around Bill and Bob were high-level Freemasons. And according to a bishop that interviewed with Jason Goodman recently, the 12-step program format was channeled during a seance where they were trying to summon the spirit of Pope Boniface. For that reason, I've completely divorced myself from the 12-step program format. I already had reservations about it, and I think it's part of MK Ultra. That's just my personal research and observations. It would mean starting to turn the TV off, for instance. Yeah, I agree. And spending much more time in prayer, reading the Bible. I agree. It would mean starting to get off the materialism merry-go-round and learning to live much more simply and charitably. It would mean getting this, quote, end-time message to others. And soon, according to Mary, which channeling the dead, again, I don't agree with that, time is extremely, extremely short. Conclusion. Let's see if we can plow on and finish on this video. This book demonstrates satanic ritual abuse does exist. We have bodies now, confessions, cult members on death row. What's more, there are now links to indicate the cults are quite structured, networked, and apparently indoctrinating a good number of people. There also seem to be overlaps between highly clandestine government mind-controlled technology and cult programming, yes. And has anyone noticed a suggestion of a cover-up? When I look back at this book, the Akron, Ohio scenario stands out. A cult survivor frantically trying to get someone to believe her, maps out the way to a secluded ritual site. A tenacious investigator treks far back into the woods. He finds a triangular site, a fire pit, a tree with satanic markings. His comment after matching what he saw at the site with the survivor's explanation of rituals there, quote, something happened. And just as the woman in Akron was so frantically trying to get the message across, so too are scores of courageous ritual abuse survivors around the planet. What's more, they are not only saying something happened, they are also saying something is still happening. They are trying desperately to sound the alarm so that other innocent victims don't have to feel the cold steel of a knife slashing across their neck. And beyond, some are trying to warn about much more than just the macabre late-night ceremonies. They are risking their lives talking about who some of these, quote, respectable-looking cult members are, where they are placed in society, and what their overall agenda appears to be. Denial. As with much of the initial stories about the Holocaust, the simple horrific stories coming out about the killing fields of Cambodia's Pol Pot regime, this is all quite hard to hear and jolts our, what Matthew chapter 4 terms epistemological boundaries. That is, many people have boundaries around how much realization of evil or level of horror they are able to let into their conscious mind. And, says Matthew, satanic ritual abuse and all of its implications punctuates too big a hole in how most of the general populace views society. So, most of society goes into the first phase of a sort of collective global grief process, denial. The denial then sparks an inevitable backlash, a, quote, kill the messenger mentality. Dedicated, highly skilled therapists and social service workers are labelled as quacks, rumour mongers, and so on. Survivor stories, even in the midst of surfacing hard evidence, are labelled, quote, patently false, delusional. And isn't it more than a little bit curious? The FBI, the organisation that said the mafia didn't exist, would be so quick to come out with something as influential as a sweeping law enforcement perspective, debunking this, and serving to discourage local law enforcement from following up on ritual aspects of a crime. Speaking of government agencies, how much of a stretch is it to believe that factions of an agency like the CIA, which has injected babies with radiation and literally and unconscionably wiped out people's minds, might be tied to these underworld groups? Particularly since some of the type of sophisticated mind control technology they use is reportedly showing up in these groups. Groups that might include the likes of the Satanic hierarchy, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Illuminati. Note, just today as I'm writing this, there is a wire service report indicating part of the Cold War era radiation experiments may have included, quote, total body radiation tests on war veterans. Akron detective Casada found a triangle made of intertwined vines. I've got to believe on one level that will prove symbolic. That is, these sadistic hate groups, dark government factions, and so on, may well be intimately intertwined, and their agenda may well be world control. And just as the Ohio site was so well hidden, so it seems has the overall cult plan been, whether hidden in cult members' attics late at night, in government sub-basements, or even a couple layers into the subconscious of cult operatives. Granted, this is all quite scary to let sink in, and even scarier when thinking about doing something about it. But do something about it we must, and we've had some excellent models. One good thing about the backlash, said Monarch Resources Maureen Brew, it makes you fight even harder to get the truth out. Fighting back. While I talk disparaging about some media, that's not all the media by any means. Among some reporters, as there always has been, there is a gutsy, tenacious drive to get to the real truth. Brackets the Washington Post's reporters Woodward and Bernstein's undaunting efforts to expose Watergate, for instance. Well, they weren't such heroes with what we know now. And Watergate really was about paedophilia, but that's a deeper level of research. Some of this subject's modern Woodwards and Bernsteins have included investigative journalists Maury Terry, Michael Newton, and Roy Blake, who have all taken substantial risks in trying to dig up the truth. The painstaking work of former Senator DeCamp in trying to expose the Nebraska affair, and law professor Alan Shefflin's work in trying to expose CIA wrongdoings should also be commended. Meanwhile, Detective Casada, John Hunt, Dale Griffiths, Jerry Simandl still exhaustively follow up on every possible ritual clue, often on their own time, trying to expose this. Despite death threats, California ritual crime investigator Randy Cerny relentlessly pursues a highly dangerous satanic cult. In Canada, an expert team of police and social workers expose a sexual ritual abuse ring that is staggering in its size. Brackets and how many more similar rings would be exposed if professionals had the time and a green light. A family in Texas, at great risk to themselves, opens their home to a woman and her daughter breaking away from a cult in Oklahoma. Brackets, this becomes the genesis of an organization to sponsor cult safe houses. Therapists across the country are threatened, poisoned, faced with waves of public skepticism, yet press on in trying to help ritual abuse survivors, some of the most hurting people on the planet, heal. And despite the code of silence programming, the intense fear and public backlash, some of these survivors still struggle with everything they have inside them to go back into a past Stephen King would have a hard time with, to uncover secrets that are not only key to their healing, but secrets that may be key to all of our futures. They need help. Those on the front lines of all this need help, a lot of help. They need prayer, they need moral support, they need volunteer help, they need financial support, and they need it now. I have to just pause and see why the dog's barking, sorry. Well, maybe not. There are all kinds of organizations listed in the appendix. Please pick one and help them. What's more, we need to keep collectively coming together to form communities to fight back. Ministers, educators, therapists, police, civic organizations, the general public need to come together to take a stand the way they've done, for instance, with task forces in LA, Minnesota, Michigan. Brackets, the evolution of the National Ritual Abuse Awareness Coalition is also an optimistic sign. It is only in a united effort that there will be significant success. And again, it is important to note a measure of success is already coming person by person. Each time another cult survivor breaks away, gets into recovery, and starts to break the programming, a few more bricks in the cult's wall fall down, and a little more of the overall plan is exposed and dismantled. Kids in peril. Think of Lisa and Gabriel. So many more. All this might be doubly hard given some of the prevailing social climate around us. I recently gave a presentation at a National Trauma Resolution Conference in Arizona. The day of the talk, the Arizona Daily Star carried the following headline: Kids in Peril, Latest Movie Shock Tactic. The following is an excerpt from the article. It takes a lot to give sophisticated audiences that thrill of fear and loathing, that sensation of hitting the wall of one's own tolerance. Carnage, the degradation of women, machine gun blasts of foul language have had their day. Now, Hollywood has latched onto something that still has the power to jolt even the most jaded moviegoer, putting children in peril. The idea behind a shock, after all, is to take something beloved and then fold, spindle, and mutilate it. Think the global explosion in child pornography consumption and creation. And with the proven success of Jurassic Park, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, we are most likely about to see waves of such cinema. A tidal wave. There are a number of indications the climax to the physical world takeover is building at a tremendous rate. And as serendipity, I believe, would have it, as I was first leafing through the May 1994 Discover magazine, looking for the article on memory, I came across another article. The first page showed an aerial view of some of the world continent coastlines and the massive Pacific Ocean looming in the middle. Overlaid was the headline, quote, "Waves of Destruction." The first two sentences, quote, "Tsunamis have always been mysterious monsters." Remember that word. Mountain-sized waves that race invisibly across the ocean at 500 miles per hour, drain harbors in a single gulp, and destroy coastal communities without warning. But now some researchers are trying to take the mystery away. A tsunami, a tidal wave, is usually caused by an earthquake out in the ocean. A vast swell of water, which may cover up to 10,000 square miles, collapses. Then, according to the article, there are alternating swells and collapses, which ultimately create the tidal wave. On the open sea, a tsunami might be only 10 feet high, while its wavelength, the distance from one tsunami crest to another, can be up to 600 miles. Normal surface waves hide tsunami, but that placid surface belies the power surging through the water. The massive tower of water will eventually burst onto land at freeway speeds, destroying everything in sight. I personally believe somewhere hidden in the depths of society, in some men's and women's souls, something gave way, throwing everything off balance. Morals collapsed, and the alternating swells of evil keep increasing in pressure at this monster wave. Physical world takeover keeps getting bigger and bigger below the surface, moving swiftly inland. Right now, some can only see the top 10 feet, and even that is hidden among other societal waves at this point. Urban violence, broken families, drug abuse, poverty, wars. However, when this final phase of the physical world takeover wave hits the mainland, the devastation will be tremendous. Seismologists say there is no way to prevent a tsunami, but there are now early warning tsunami sensing devices placed in strategic places far out in the ocean floor, so people will have a brief time to prepare. The final takeover phase sensing devices, I believe, are these emerging cult survivors who are exposing different parts of the takeover plan. As the tsunami sensors lie at the depths of the ocean floor, some of the world takeover sensors lie at the bottom of these programmed layers in the depths of some of these survivors' unconscious minds. We need to listen. We need to prepare. Craig McGowan's notes, and Daniel Ryder never even reached the period of direct energy weapons and Project Bluebeam, though he did allude to them as per The Future with Bryce Taylor. Thanks for the memories. The Truth Has Set Me Free. The memoirs of Bob Hope's and Henry Kissinger's mind-controlled slave. Used as a presidential sex toy and personal computer. Memory shouldn't be shards of a broken dream. Secret pain shouldn't strain breathlessly to scream. I know the where, I know the when, I know the who too well. Believe me or believe me not, I have a truth to tell. From Memory Shouldn't Be by Frank M. Ochberg, PhD. About the author, Daniel Ryder, BS, CCDC, LSW, is a degreed journalist, certified chemical dependency counselor, and a licensed social worker. He has worked for several newspapers, developed one of the first codependency treatment programs in the Midwest, and is the author of the widely acclaimed Breaking the Circle of Satanic Ritual Abuse, Recognizing and Recovering from the Hidden Trauma. The name Daniel Ryder is a pseudonym. Also by Daniel Ryder, This Present Darkness, Live or Live, a case study. See bibliography to order. I think I might have read that. For additional copies of this book, see order form on the last page. Good luck with that. Play Me Backwards. This is Joan Baez again. I think. My mother loved Joan Baez. We used to listen to that growing up. You don't have to play me backwards to get the meaning of my verse. You don't have to die and go to hell to feel the devil's curse. Well, I thought my life was a photograph on the family Christmas card. Kids all dressed in buttons and bows and lined up in the yard. Were the golden days of childhood so lyrical and warm, or did the picture start to fade on the day that I was born? I've seen them light the candles. I've heard them bang the drums. And I've cried, Mama, Mama, I'm as cold as ice. And I've got no place to run. Let the night begin. There's a pop of skin and a sudden rash of scarlet. There's a little boy riding on a goat's head and a little girl playing the harlot. There's a sacrifice in an empty church of sweet little baby Rose. And a man in a mask from Mexico is peeling off my clothes. I've seen them light the candles, I've heard them bang the drums, and I've cried, Mama, Mama, I'm as cold as ice, and I got no place to run. So I'm paying for protection, smoking out the truth, chasing recollections, nailing down the proof. You don't have to play me backwards to get the meaning of my verse. You don't have to die and go to hell to feel the devil's curse. I'll stand before the altar and I'll tell everything I know. I've come to claim my childhood at the chapel of Baby Rose. I've seen them light the candles. Written by Joan Baez, Wally Wilson, Kenny Greenberg, Karen O'Connor. Permission for reprint granted by Gabriel L. Music, Sony Cross Keys Publishing Co. Inc., Greenberg Music, copyright Virginia Records. Resources. Resources for ritual abuse survivors have grown tremendously in the last several years. California-based Monarch Resources, what a strange name, which has provided some of the following data, typifies the growth. A non-profit organization founded in 1988 by lecturer, abuse survivor advocate Maureen Brew. Monarch now receives thousands of calls a year related to topics of ritual abuse. Monarch is an informal clearinghouse that provides resources and information, bibliographies, listings of newsletters, hotlines, support groups, referrals for each of 4 interest areas: childhood sexual abuse and incest, ritual abuse, multiple personality dissociation, and pro-survivors. It also publishes a quarterly calendar of events and conferences and offers a speakers bureau and conference planning service. Now, remember, this is 20 years, so some of these might not work, but contact Monarch Resources at PO Box 1293, Torrance, California, 90505-0293, or call 310-373-1958. I've got a friend in Orange County that I might contact, a school teacher. The following list is subject to change as the field evolves. We extend our thanks to SAVE for use of their database. The American Association for Lost Children, PO Box 41154, Houston, Texas, 77241. I'm not going to read all these contact details. I'm going to just, you can stop the video, and because I don't know if these will still be relevant, but American Family Foundation, American Humane Association, anxiety disorders. Yeah, there's a whole alphabetical, so I'll go through slow enough for you to stop them. Sacramento, Canada, Indiana, Minneapolis, Hollywood. Concerned Christian Growth Ministries, Australia. There is in the comments under one of these videos is a link for a PDF if anybody wants to download this book. Dallas, Texas, Christchurch, New Zealand, LA, United Kingdom, Assistance Information and Rescue Fair, London, Followers of Jesus Christ, FOJC, that's Carrico, David and Donna Carrico. Go ahead. National Society for the Study of Dissociation, Illinois. LA, Torrance, Monarch, MPD Dignity. Plenty of resources here. Just stop the video, and even if these are defunct now, you might be able to track down some that have followed on. National Victim Center, the Onion Skin Collective. This is great. Warwick, wow. Oh, that's a different Warwick in America. Survivor Connections, Survivors, Survivorship, Stone Angels Journal. If you need these resources, find the link under comments of one of the videos. Bibliography, again, I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but you can stop this video and see the bibliography here. You can find my work as I continue on the journey to healing without very much support. I have had 16 weeks of DID counselling courtesy of Bride Ministries International in America, and I'm in a support group weekly with a focus group of about 21 survivors. But I was told in Ireland that there are no resources to help people with DID. Bibliography on multiple personality. Yeah, and If you can help financially, just in practical ways, because I've shared all of my healing journey and everything I've learned along the way. I've shared it, you know, probably at my own cost, but, you know, I would do it anyway. But if anybody feels led to help financially, I'll leave a couple of links in the description box. $13.95 $13.95 the book was, and now it's $15,000 if you can find it. Oh, there's a video. Wow. Video and an audio book. Well, there was. And his groundbreaking first book, Breaking the Circle of Satanic Ritual Abuse, Recognizing and Recovering from the Hidden Trauma. Hazelden Publishing. This Present Darkness, Live or Live, case study by Daniel and Liz Ryder, both of whom apparently died in mysterious circumstances. I must try and see if I can find out more, but I don't think there's much to find out. So, This Present Darkness, this is the story of a real town you'd swear Frank Peretti had in mind when he wrote This Present Darkness. It's also the story of how some Christians in Alaska are banding together to take their town back for Jesus in the midst of what's shaping up to be a dramatic revival. What's more, God is urgently calling people to deeper levels of revival in their ongoing spiritual work, addictions, emotional recovery, social consciousness, and environmental concern. It's becoming clear that all over the world there is version after version of the prophetically inspired town Peretti wrote about. And with the end times upon us, battle lines are rapidly being drawn in these places. Is your town one of them? Yes, it is. If so, the booklet contains tried information for strategies you can use to take back your town and yourselves for Jesus. Daniel and Liz Ryder started Ryder Ministries in 1994. Daniel is also the author of the groundbreaking Breaking the Circle of Satanic Ritual Abuse, Recognizing and Recovering from the Hidden Trauma, and the more recent Cover-Up of the Century, Satanic Ritual Crime and World Conspiracy. The name Ryder is a pseudonym. This Present Darkness, I don't know if it's live or live, case study. $6.95. Hazelden Publishing. It's happening. Satanic forces have woven themselves way into the fabric of society and are conspiring to soon orchestrate a world takeover very soon. They have infiltrated governments, businesses, civic organizations, churches. They live in our neighborhoods. They engage in the most unconscionable forms of sexual abuse, torture, and killings. And using highly sophisticated mind control techniques, they have also been clandestinely programming a whole new type of slave population. However, some of these people have courageously broken away and are starting to talk. And the breadth of what they are revealing is not only staggering, but there are strong indicators of a sweeping cover-up at the highest levels, indeed. This is not fiction, and it is information we all need to know. Daniel Ryder is an investigative journalist and licensed counsellor. He has crisscrossed the country, interviewing those who are desperately trying to expose this threat. Ryder is also the author of the groundbreaking Breaking the Cycle of Satanic Ritual Abuse, and he and his wife have authored This Present Darkness, Live or Live. Thanks for listening, people. Check the links in the description box below, and please share this, especially with families of survivors, professionals, and law enforcement. Thank you.